Well, my full name is Muhammad Imran Khan, but my parents or anyone don't call me by that. They just call me Imran. So that's my name, Imran, and my last name's Khan. Um, my mum is Maori, so she's Ngāti Porou, which is from Tairāwhiti region, which is like east coast of Gisborne, Ruatoria, this kind of area. So she grew up there until she was like 19 or something. She was living in a smaller town called Tikaraka, and then my dad is a third generation Fijian Indian, and he's Elias's brother, oldest brother. And then there was like a slow migration. I guess a couple of them came over first, and then my dad came over and married this woman from a small town in Gisborne, and then they moved to Auckland, and then had kids and settled down basically. And it's me, and I've got a brother. And then so there's like 5 brothers that eventually came over. I think 4 of them all married either Māori, a Samoan, or Pākehā, like a Caucasian Australian, and Kiwi. And so there's like most of us are half castes, and then there's only one that there's 2. There's 2 of the brothers, that married Fijian Indian woman, which we call full breeds amongst ourselves, because we're like the only half caste family out of all of the families that whenever we go to anything. So that'll give you an idea of this full breed, half breed of where we're coming from. You're sort of these undertones of like who is better. I mean, in our eyes, I guess we've always thought we're better, just because like you can just tell by looking at us when you see these dudes. We're always like, oh, we're better than them. But they always thought that they were better than us. And well, that's what we believe. I don't know what's in their head, but we always just had this idea. I don't know if it's true or not, but certain things make us think that way. And then that's basically it. So we grew up in just off Panama Road. It's an area called Panama, basically, but it's in like Mount Wellington, Otahu. And then my parents got divorced, and I moved to East Auckland, and my brother stayed out there. And my dad still lives in this area, but basically there was a street, and it'd be like my dad's house, and then my uncle's house, my cousin's house, my other cousin's house, and then my other cousin's house, and my other cousin's house. So like 5 of these family members all lived on the one road, right? So then it was like you could just walk from house to house, and and then everyone's got boys basically, except for one guy who just had 5 daughters, and then it was just like boys will be boys kind of thing. But I sort of got plucked out of there, and Illy and his family almost did live in this scenario, and they also got moved. They moved to Papatoi, so basically I was coming in and out of this thing, and Illy was coming in and out of this thing. And I guess when you step back and look at it, you can see the difference in us compared to some of the other ones that stayed in it. But then I went out there to a couple of schools out that way, primary, intermediate, and then we moved to Central Auckland. And then I went to a good school, went to Auckland Boys Grammar, and then after that got a trade qualification as an electrician there for 7 years, and then did some travel, and then come back after a couple of years of that, and then had my own business.
Sorry, where did you travel?
I went to Thailand first. So, I mean, so we talk about boxing and stuff. Basically, when we moved after intermediate from East Auckland, we moved right next to Mount Eden Prison. It's like Auckland Grammar's got like I was about to say loophole. It's like there's a rule, right? It's like you've got to be in zone. Okay, so although it's a public school, to live in zone costs a lot of money, right? So we moved into an apartment right next to the prison, which meant that I could go to that school. So I did, and then right next to that school was this boxing gym, and that's sort of what sparked up a whole journey there. But basically I went to Thailand for 2 years for half a year training there, and then I went to Philippines. That was only for a month, but I did training there too for that month, and then to Malaysia, and was only really meant to do a stopover in Malaysia, and then it ended up being a year and a half, like 2 stints, basically half a year. Went back to New Zealand for I think 4 weeks or 3 weeks, and then got flown back, and then did a full year. And by that stage, I was like, yeah, full coaching. So it's a little bit jumping around in the story because I know we sort of want to make it flow, but those are mainly Southeast Asia for 2 years. A few little stops in between Singapore, Cambodia, things like that. What got me into boxing was more like the gym happened to be on the road, like across from the prison, right? So this guy sparked the gym up there, and then it was around the corner from my house, and it was mainly just like I would see these box fit sort of classes running up and down, and then like third form I was like chubby, so then I don't know what happened. One day, no one really forced me in my house, but I was like, oh, I'll just go have a look. And then I went down and had a go, and it was like I was all right, and then kept going because it was so close. And then eventually I just went up to the coach and said, hey, look, I want to like do actual boxing. I don't want to just do these classes anymore. And then he was like, sweet. And then we started training with the fighters, and I sort of got real lucky, man, because I was like the youngest or the second youngest in this crew, but he had like a pretty elite squad. This guy who trained me has trained more national champs than anyone in New Zealand, and so I kind of just like lucked out on like walking into the right gym, which I'll talk about later because I feel like it's such a big thing for some guys. But anyway, I rolled the dice and it worked out well for me. So I walked in, and he was a really technically sound coach and had like a hit squad of these dudes, and you know, he ended up marrying this girl who's like went to the Olympics, London, and I think she ended up in 5th or 4th like that. So he's been producing some pretty high level guys. He trained David Tour as an amateur. He's done he's done heaps of cool stuff. So it was pretty sweet. So I walked in, and then all right, sweet, got good training straight away, and then realized I liked it. And then they were like, all right, just like sit at the desk after school, and like, you know, when people come in, swipe them in and that, and then when they're done, then you can start training, and then you can train for free. And that was like that.
What a deal.
Yeah. So, and it was fun, bro. Like, you know, I was like a little bit of homework, I sit down, you're like 15, 16, 17, you're working at a gym, and a lot of the guys are like older, you know, and they like bouncers and stuff like this. So it's like, you know, they're like cool, and it was just fun. And then I went from that to actually taking the classes. So I would like take some of the box fit and then train. And I kind of liked it, and I had a formula then, you know, and so I knew what good looked like, because this was like a good gym, and they did it properly, and the box fit class was as good as you could get, really. So I like learned to take that and then tweak it a little bit as more I learned stuff, and realized sort of what they did like, what they didn't like, and then that was basically it. And then I stayed in the gym and competed, and like went to a nationals, sort of got I didn't get stopped, but I didn't win in the semi-final, which was kind of stupid. And then at like 18 or 17 or something, I left school, right? So then I got this job, and I had to go become a electrical apprentice.
That's the last year of school, yeah?
Yeah. So once you sort of 17 is your last year at school in New Zealand, yeah.
Unless you'll stay back.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of boys there who stay back, but I think they just stay back for rugby, to be honest.
Yeah. There's a free ride usually,
yeah. And that was that, man. And I sort of you can't. What I realize now is it's pretty hard to do both. I don't think you can. You're either all in, all out. And I had like waffled, sort of like floated between that, but mainly I was going to work, right? And I had this obligation, and that was sweet with me. I wasn't like against it. I liked my job and that, but I wasn't putting everything into training. And I just did this for like till, I don't know, 24, 25, like this, sort of coming and going and little stints and breaks and that, and getting qualified as an electrician. And then, yeah, I basically did 7 years with this company. So I qualified and did some more time. And then I was like, still had this like desire to go to the gym more and more. And then someone told me about, there's these, basically I made a few little career changes, right? I thought I'd try this and try that, and they all sucked. And that was about 6 months, this gap of like trying a couple of things that I didn't like, just because I knew I had this done now and I could always go back to it. And then someone told me about these camps in Thailand where you can fly to Thailand and then you can stay in these hotels and you can train every day. And I never heard of this stuff. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, this is pretty sweet. And realized I knew someone that had done it. And then he put me on to, because I would have probably fallen into the trap of going to Phuket, which is not a bad thing. They've got solid gyms there and there's heaps of famous guys that go there. But I've been there and I don't reckon you get a true experience of what Thailand's really like. So I was lucky and I got to go to Chiang Mai. And so I chose that. And then basically me and this guy quit our jobs. Sweet, we're off. And we went. And I just had like a bunch of cash in my pocket. And when I got there, the plan was we'll do 3 months. We'll finish up the 3 months and then we'll go to Aussie. And we'll work as electricians because we've heard about the mines and all the jazz that goes on there. And then we'll come back with all our money and, whatever's the next thing will happen. But after a month, I still had like 90% of my cash left, right? Because I'd basically sleep, wake up, go to the gym, which was like next door, then eat local Thai food, and then go to sleep again, and then wake up, and then do it again in the afternoon, and then go out, eat again. And we just did this for a month, and it was like fun because we were like right in the middle of like a legit Muay Thai gym that had like, so they had fighters and they had coaches, and they were all legit. And then what you really got to see was like how it works. Like they had like 3 young guys there that were from like the hills, and they all had like different reasons about why they were there. I think one of them, like both his parents were dead. One of them was like alcoholic parent, like dad and mum that just worked in the fields, and one that just got like sent. So this gym was like, it was looking after these 3 kids basically. But the deal was, look, at this particular gym, you can go to school, which a lot of them don't, but you can go to school, and when you come back and before school, you train, and then you fight in the weekends. And you can send some money home, and hopefully you'll get really, really good. And then this investment of us looking after you will all pay off, which is what, I'm sure that's the end goal of it all. But so we got to see that. And then we'd go out to these, like, just the middle of nowhere, man. Like there'd be these, when they harvest all their rice, like the fields are like empty again. And it's just like this. And then, so you turn up and it'd be like, like nothing. And then they just like wheel in a stage, and then all these carts, and then he's like just banging up lights and stuff. And then all of a sudden there's a Muay Thai ring there, and like all the women are like dancing on the stage. And then these guys are always like, everyone's around this ring fighting. And it's just like in a paddock. And like, speaking of fireworks, there's like, I remember seeing like 6 or 7 monks, and they like dug this hole, and they were just pouring like, sparklers, but it was just like, they just had like buckets of just the dust, and they just dug a hole, and they were just pouring it into the hole, and then like pouring like a trail all the way back to like where it was safe enough. And then they were just lighting it, and it would just go like, and this thing was massive. Like if you stood a container up like that, it was just a cloud of spark, and they were just doing this all night. And like, it's just crazy. Like no health and safety, but no one ever gets hurt. And so we saw all of this, and plus it was it was with a bunch of like other foreigners, you know, so we were all like, could all speak English and experience this together. And I just made mates and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that went on after a month. After 3 months, I think he went home. We come to this point where I was like, bro, I got 70% of my money left. So like, I'm all good. I don't actually need to go anywhere. I could stretch this out. And he was like, sweet, I'm going. So he left, and then I was just left there by myself. And then the journey began, and it was sweet. Like by then I'd like full confidence. I was like on this whole thing, like just don't get ripped off was the main buzz for me. I know I wasn't going to get myself into any weird, like down some dark alley with some random chick kind of situation. So I was just like, all right, if I just keep my nose out of trouble here, I seem to be getting away with this, and I'm not getting like, I got food poisoning one time real bad, but other than that, I was pretty like, I sort of got with it pretty quick, and I thought I was sweet. So that was that, yeah. The 3 months there. Then I went and found another one of these camp things in the Philippines that a friend told me about. And what actually happened was I was meant to go see a guy there who was a really good boxing coach. And the guy who told me is a half Thai, half Aussie guy named Dan Minnie T. Williams. And he's a mean fighter. And I think he lives up in Perth, eh? But he was like, right, go see this guy. And when I got there, they were like, oh, he's left. He's met some chick and they moved to New Zealand. And I was like, oh, shit, all right. Well, so I did my month there. Then back to, I was going to go, okay, I'll go to Malaysia, chill out for a week, because this has just been like a pretty long stint of training now. And after the week there, I'll go back to Thailand and just do it again. Like, that's sweet. But sort of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I was sitting in this room looking around and stuff. And then Thursday came and I was like getting a bit itchy. And then I rocked down to this gym. I found one locally. And when I walked in, it was Aguilan and Samir like at the desk. And these guys are like talking. Those names will mean more to Dilly, but he'll get the gist. But basically, these two dudes were talking. And I could sort of, I don't know, I just picked up on what it was about. And then I was like, hey, you guys like looking for a coach? And they were like, oh, well, yeah, kind of. And I sort of hit it on the head. And then I was like, oh, listen, I'll do the first class for free. And if you like it, we can just go from there. And then they said, okay. And then I came in on the Monday, did the class, and then they just said straight away, oh, yeah, you got the job. And then and that's what I mean by that formula thing. I just took that same formula from when I was like 15, 16, from those box fit classes, because I knew that that's what they wanted. They weren't trying to train fighters in these classes. And just like made that work there. Sweet, it worked. And then did 3 months of this stuff and taking one-on-ones and then working with the fighters, which is what I wanted to do. And then I said to them, oh, listen, my ticket's up there. I got to go home. I've only extended it so much. And then they said, yeah, all good. Just go and we'll pay for your ticket back. And then went home, came back, and then did another year. And that was it. I was like the head boxing coach there at Monarchy and managed the gym for a little bit and stuff like that. So that was funny. It was a good time, man. I learned heaps. Heaps. It was pretty fun.
Well, I went over to visit Imran.
I got earlier job.
Yeah. So I went over to go see him, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll come for a few months or whatever. And probably like the first week I got there was like they were looking for someone to run the desk and do some admin stuff and whatever. And I was like, I would say, oh well, how much is it going to cost me to train here for 3 months and that? And then me and Imran worked out, well, how about I just work here, and that should cover my gym fees. And to the point where, so Samir, the guy who, I guess the founder of the gym, or one of the owners there, he's an professional MMA fighter for 1FC. I think he's still on the roster. He just doesn't.
Yeah, I think he was at the beginning. He sort of pulled away. I don't know. He's not really active now, but yeah.
Yeah, but he's a Belgian fighter, and his top prospect at the time, or probably his top prospect was Aguilan, and Aguilan is an active fighter on 1FC. So anyway, met all these interesting characters, and I met their sales guy, Ben, aka Jihad, and I was just like, look, I can. Here's my CV, and they're like, why do you want to work here? You're like a office dude, like you've worked in like corporate companies in New Zealand. I'm like, nah, if it's free training, do it. So they gave me free jiu-jitsu, free boxing, everything. Like I trained. The thing with Imran's training too is it's not like I've been to other like just regular boxing, box fit type of things. But even the fighters couldn't keep up with this dude. We would go for runs, like we'd do runs in the morning. This dude's still going. And Aguilan, who's the actual pro fighter, he's like, your cousin's crazy, bro. He's crazy. I don't know. Is this how all New Zealanders train? I'm like, I think it's just because he had a really good coach, bro. Like this is like the best.
Yeah, it was just real. It was just legit. I think there was a couple guys at that gym. One is Amir. Amir is legit 100% a world-class Muay Thai fighter. Like he was ranked top 5 Farang, like deadliest Farang in Thailand. So that's like of like the, what do you call it, like foreigners. He's like one of the top 5 foreigners, and then that's like a big deal over there because Thais don't really rate guys from outside. But he's legit, man.
Wow.
He's like a scary dude, like a super nice guy, like most of them are, but he could fight, man. But at the time when I got there, Agi was still like an amateur, and that's what I liked about the whole scenario. He was like, we still had this guy who was going to develop and get better, and there wasn't consequences to us losing and getting better and things like this. It's just like him learning. So we started working with him in that, and he basically won this tournament. So they had this like Mima tournament, right? Which is like this local MMA tournament there. And it was like all the local clubs like put up their dude, and he ended up winning this thing. And then we were like stoked. It was cool. But in the time between me, like my ticket being up, coming back to New Zealand and flying back, 1FC like come in and give him a contract, like, hey, you can become a professional fighter now. And he signed it and he was in. And I would have told him, look, just do another year, do Mima again for another. You got nothing to lose. You only get better before you go and hit the real. Because there's there's no more Mima. They wear shin guards. Like he was making a big jump. It was like, and you're gonna be dealing with the real shit now. So sorry for saying, but it wasn't not much room for mistakes as a pro because of. I mean, MMA is a little bit different, but because of what your record means and things like that, like those matter. It doesn't really matter in amateur fighting. But anyway, he took it, and then that ride began. We started going to 1FC tournaments, and those were pretty legit. Like it is like the 3rd biggest one in the world. So they had big lights, big stadiums, all of that. That was fun. Oh, I can remember it exactly. It was like after a training session in Thailand. We were all like sitting down on this like balcony bit, and like a couple days leading up to it, so we would like have sparring, and on the Wednesdays we'd do like boxing sparring, right? And then the Saturdays would be like Muay Thai sparring, and I was like toesing up a few guys just from boxing because I just had like cleaner boxing, used simple punches, and then they would be like, oh, hey, can you show me a couple things? I keep walking into this, so I keep doing it. And I did, and then it worked for them. And then we sort of were sitting down, and I think a couple people's time were coming to an end in that. And we're just talking about like, well, what are you going to do when you go back and that? And I was like, I think I'm just going to be a coach. I think I know what I want to do now. I just want to work with fighters. I knew for a very long time that I wasn't going to be a world champion. In my humble opinion, these people are pretty special. To go all the way to the top, I'm talking about Olympic gold medal, AIB, like we got like world champs going on at the moment. Those guys that do that, a lot of things come together to make this sort of one guy that can get to this position. And I knew for a long time, like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely not that guy, but I have so much like love for the sport, and I don't want to not be part of it. So where do I fit in here? And I think I got a good eye for it. And coaching, just like fighting, is a skill that you sort of acquire. So I kind of realized there that, like, yeah, all right, I'm going to do it here. And I knew in Thailand, I sort of made that decision up then. Yeah, sweet.
It's an interesting transition.
Yeah,
well,
like this.
I don't know, because I wasn't like the, like, you know, like the best fighter ever or like just super thing. I was just always into it, always training hard, liked it so much. But there's like a definite mindset about being a fighter. Like if you're really about it, then you want to be the best, like all the time. Like it's pretty hard, eh? It's a pretty hard sport, and you gotta like be keen to go into those real dark places in your head and be comfortable to do that quite often, because it's all good being like tricky and stuff like that, and then someone just like cracks you real hard in the face, and that in itself can be a technique, you know what I mean? If you guys like real slick in that, oh, we'll just punch him really hard and let's see what happens here. And like, is he keen to just keep going? And the guy, that's what I mean. There's some guys like, you see it heaps in UFC that are just like fully will walk through the shit to give it back, and it takes a special kind of guy. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We were actually talking yesterday about, I mean, I don't want to segue too much, but, you know, there's kind of like a movement, obviously, in the UFC with all these Russian Muslim fighters and just like Middle Eastern dudes beating people up. But, like, I guess, like, you know, guys like Kamzat and stuff like that, like, they definitely know they've got like a bit of a history or background that isn't like anyone else. And that, do you think that adds to it as well? Like, guys like...
Yeah, I think... Look, I think it's probably with a lot of things, man. It's like probably not just sport, but if you look at it's sort of like, okay, well, what molds someone's like competitive personality, and then like maybe some of it's genetic, but maybe a lot of it's like their upbringing, and then that might be like a good upbringing or a bad upbringing, but it's like something's driving them, and then it's like what's you obviously have the physical, right? Like some guys are pretty gifted, eh? Like Israel is like the perfect build for that weight class. He's a specimen. So like you got this thing, you got him coming from another country. If we just use him as an example, like you could probably use Anthony Joshua. All of these guys have these little backstories where they're trying to prove something quite a lot. They've also got this physical ability. There's just so many things go in. Mike Tyson's another one about this like 13-year-old boy who used to hide down some alley and then get scooped up, and this guy like nurtures him, but the whole time he's nurturing him, he's making him believe that like, well, why shouldn't it be you? Almost like this brainwashing is happening in a way. And so you get like the mental drive, the physical aspects, and then what I was alluding to before is like there's probably guys that have had like 3 or 4 of these things and have walked into the wrong gym and then just had crappy training from the beginning. And I've seen it when we go to fights all the time. I was like, man, this guy could be legit, but his coach is not getting him to do the right stuff. They're focusing on flashy things. He doesn't have good basics and stuff like that. And we just get caught out.
Do you think like sometimes they do like kind of like a cookie cutter kind of system where they just put all of the same stuff to different fighters?
No, I don't know. I mean, if you took that as an example, then you'd probably say my coaching style is cookie cutter, because I'm like fundamentals hard out. Like if you come to my gym, I have every single movement that AIBA, which is the amateur body that governs amateur boxing, have in their coach's manual. Like every movement, every punch they've like, they've logged it down, right? So this is a jab to the body, this is walking forward, this is walking back. I have all of that strapped to the wall. So in my eyes, it's like, you need to be able to do all of this if you want to be good. This is what good looks like, is you can perform every single one of these movements. What makes you special or very good or the best is to be able to take those and mix them and then add that little bit of swagger, and then you can pull it all off when you need to, right? So I think what happens with a lot of guys is either the coaches just are like, oh, we'll just see if we can focus on their natural ability, because like most people in New Zealand can sort of throw a punch, and so they don't drive these like fundamental techniques into them, and they sort of rely on a little bit of their natural ability. And then the other one is they'll like try to get them to do stuff that like is super advanced, like it might look simple. Let's like go for like a basic, like that Mike Tyson thing, right? He like rips to the body, uppercut to the head. It's like a classic, but like they miss all the stuff that Mike Tyson did to get into that position, the like head movement, the footwork and all of that. And they're just like, no, just focus on this big left hook or this big uppercut hook. And the guys never get in position to do it. And then, so for me, all my guys, and I just focus on that, like make sure you can do all of this. And then we can...
It shows like levels to boxing. That's probably why I appreciate boxing at how many levels, because it's not only like, I think like yourself, like fundamentals in any sport is the foundation of every good athlete.
Yeah.
But then obviously other characteristics you need to build on, and boxing's got level changes, defensive movement, footwork. The Lomachenko's, the Usyks of the world. They're more technicians, but yeah, I mean, I think some people downplay a lot of fundamentals. Probably not in. I think it's good that you said that as like a concept, because a lot of people downplay fundamentals basically in life. And I think it's like, because I see boxers as a philosophy, like of styles, and Teddy Atlas has a philosophy of like how he approaches striking and how he coaches, and so do other coaches, and probably like Eugene Behrman probably is the same as well, like the way they strike, the way they use length and all that stuff. But it probably speaks to like your philosophy. I'm more of a philosophical, like the way I approach things, but it's to be good. It's a big cookie. Sometimes you end up being a puzzle that's easily solved, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, by saying like cookie cutter coaching, I mean, I would make sure all my guys can do all of that before that. So like, you can put me in this box. Yeah, this guy's like hardcore fundamentals, but I'll also show you guys that are like hardcore fundamental boxers and win all the time. So, at the top level, it's not much that, you go to an Olympic final, both these guys can do everything that but the other guy can do, right? So like, it's not like, oh, he doesn't punch hard. They all punch hard. They all move fast. They're all fit. They all can go backwards. They can all go forwards, left and right, up and down, everything. So then it's like, it comes down to this like experience and being in those high level situations often, and how comfortable you are to perform. And then it's like that thing. It's what I mean. These guys are like not normal. We just watched, they just had the Olympics, right? So you got like David Nike versus the Russian guy who was, that guy went to the final. He beats David and goes to the final, and then he faces this Cuban, and the Cuban made him like the gap between 2 and 1 was just like amazing. Yeah. So this like the Cruz guy at the moment is making people look silly, but he's all about this like movement, this sort of offbeat stuff, and we're just trying to drill a little bit of that into our guys at the moment. But I bet you if you showed him to do all those other basics, he'll bang that out too, So it's like, I don't have a guy who's an Olympian yet, so we're not really focusing on like trying to get that stuff out of them. I really want to get this stuff solid, and then we can add to that. Cool. I put it to them like this, if you want a sort of metaphor. It's like, if you're going to write a song, I'm more here to teach you all the notes, and then you'll go away and you'll put the notes together in different orders, and then you'll make your beat, So I don't want to put them in a box, but I do want to make sure that they can do this stuff. And it's really rare too.
That's cool.
It's David Tour. It's David Tour versus Lennox Lewis. And I wouldn't listen. I'm not going to tell him I could have told David how to do anything better. All I would have said was, okay, Dave, it's round 8. You're losing this fight. You have to go now, okay? There's no other way you can win this. You can't win this by doing the same thing for the next 4 rounds. You got to either go all in, you're getting knocked out, or he's getting knocked out. That's it. And he probably would have won. Something amazing would have happened, and he would have gone down as like, it would have just been the greatest. Yeah, for sure. I've actually met him recently. So he's got back into amateur boxing. And it's cool. He's got a gym, and he's doing cool stuff out in Onehunga. And we fought against him, bro. That was like a mean experience, eh? Like, we got up on the ring. It was like David Tour across the ring in the other corner, and then his boxer, my boxer. And we stopped this guy in the first round. And that was sweet. But he, like, I met him at a training camp, and like, we're like, oh shit, it's David Tour. Hey, cool. And I was like, hey, Dave, can we take a photo? And listen, man, we're like all huddled around, and he like put his left hand on my shoulder, just like you know, this. And I felt it straight away. It was just like, poof. And so I could imagine if he was chucking that thing, yeah, most people would have gone to sleep. Eh? It was
like an infinity gauntlet just landed on you.
Oh, right. Felt the weight, and like it was like everywhere. Just, I was like, holy shit, this is cool. Yeah, he's super nice. I guess everyone knows that about him. He just changed some lady's tire. She broke down, and like, you know, he's just like, he's just a cool dude, eh? But I'm so cool. It's like awesome to have him like back in this realm where we are, like grassroots boxing, and like kids can see him and be like, whoa, you know, he went pretty far, eh? So yeah, be him, bro. Man.
Where do you think Joseph Parker's going to go next at this rate? Where do you think he really fits in the mix?
He probably beats this Chisora, and then he's got to wait, I guess, right? Because there's sort of like this unsettled business over here, and so much money. You know, it's like a bit unfortunate how this has gone down. But I always love an upset. So for me, I'm like standing on the sideline. This is great. But so you got like Fury and Joshua have to have this fight, but it's not really worth what it would have been worth if if it had gone down how it's supposed to. So I imagine Parker has to wait for all of that dust to settle, right? So who knows, right? So if he beats Chisora, maybe they'll say do a Ortiz or do some rematch there like that.
You reckon you should have a shot at Reynoso's
Yeah, that's Ortiz, right?
No. It's the other dude that he was on the undercard.
Oh, yeah, he was on the undercard. That's
Cuban.
right.
Yeah, he's got slick skills. I forgot his name, but yeah, he's Cuban. He's definitely Cuban.
They fought for like that. Was it that silver? Yeah, they have the WBC like platinum or silver, whatever belt.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't think he's top. I think he's like top 10, but he's not in the 6 to like 1 to 5.
I think whatever he does after this one is he has to stay busy, and he like has to keep winning, which is sort of, because pro boxing is what it is, it makes it hard for him to just sort of take any fight, especially if you've got like these guys coming up and then they're going to jump. If they beat Parker, it's way more for them than it is for him. So like if he's going to take these like other fights to stay busy, they probably can't be guys on the, he's got to just do these ones that he's going to be until he gets the time. I mean, ideally, something happens, Tyson wins it all, then retires, and then they're like, whoever's got the bout at the time is like, oh, just take an easy fight against Parker. Parker comes in, drops him, and walks away. He's got unanimous champ. Like, that'd be like the ultimate comeback. But I don't know what will happen, but I don't think he can take a loss. I guess we'll put it that way. I don't think that'll be good for his career at the moment. Yeah.
That's kind of the tough thing with boxing, eh? Like, you're either champion, you don't exist to the rest of the world. Whereas, like,
it sucks. Yeah,
MMA is like, everybody's like, oh, Chandler versus Gaethje, and those are both losers. and everybody's just like, wow, that's.
Well, even
that's
like Nate Diaz, like Nate's never been the champ, but he's probably the biggest, most popular skinny fighter in like the whole league. You know, I mean, like
Almost
Connor's
like
won
a
belts,
Street
but-
Fighter game where you have your favorites and everyone knows each character or whatever.
Yeah,
They
well,
just end up fighting.
that character thing, I think, is probably a big part of it, where like
For sure.
Dana's taken the whole WWE model where people want to get behind a guy, and so wrestlers win and lose all the time, but they don't really care because they follow the character rather than his score. But boxing, it's like an old school thing that they've just held on to, that like that zero means so much. Which to me is a bit crap, because if you look at this idea that Glover Teixeira at like 45 or something goes and wins a bout after losing it and having a career like that up and down, it just shows you that guys do get better. And like maybe that day he didn't beat him, but if they fought like 5 times, it might have been like 3-2 anyway. Like, you know what I mean? So
it definitely helps that John Jones is out of the picture, though.
Yeah, but just as far as boxing goes, it's such a big deal to have this unbeaten record,
For sure.
and it can really hurt a guy's career or put the brakes on it anyway. Like the whole rebuild from that is I don't know why the public buy into it as well so much. Like,
well, case in point, my dad and your dad's the same. Like, you probably had moments where, like, I sit with my old man, we'd be watching like a UFC event, and I'd be like, "Oh, this guy's really good," and it'd be like 21-3, and he'd be like, "He's a rubbish, bro. He's lost 3 times," and it's like 3 times. And it could be like a former champ, or it could be like someone that is like a Glover, or someone that's on the cusp of winning something. It's like, have you seen this guy is like world class level? Like, he's the man. He's a really good fighter. Yeah, but he's got 3 losses. In boxing, you don't just say but they pad. I mean, you agree? They do have to pad the records up too with the boxing to get to that point.
Bro, massive. That's the other side that's like silly, but in some sense it makes sense, right? And then sometimes it's stupid. But you got a guy who's like 20-0 before he gets the title shot, but 15 of those dudes were like taxi drivers, right? And then you got the last 5 were like legit athletes that were trying to break through as well. And people were like, "Oh, they're mean," and we've got a guy at my work, right, who used to train with us as an amateur, and he's a pro now, and he's a legit prospect out in New Zealand, Andre Mikhailovich. And we were looking, he had a fight recently, and we were like looking at the record of the guy that he fought. So the guy he was fighting, we looked at his record, right? And then we looked at like all the guys that they had fought. And one dude there had some record of like 60 fights and like 58 losses or something, and like 2 or 3 wins, something stupid like this. And we were like, this is crazy. And this guy was being touted as like a legit prospect to go against Andre. And we were like, you should bring that up at the press conference, because like, when they were like, who have you fought? And we're like, what about this guy? And just like, dude, obviously needs, that's like part-time money for him. So, he's pretty funny. That whole press conference went off crazy. It was, Anyway, I think I don't like that part of it, but I don't really like pro boxing for heaps of reasons. That's probably one of it. I like the show that they put on. I like to see the heavyweight division and the like top tier division. But at the end of the day, the reality is it's all about money. It's like the first thing. Pro boxing is about money. And if you don't have like the right people, probably guys that were pretty good wouldn't never get as far as guys who were sort of somewhat good but got the opportunities, I probably should have just worked harder at school, man. I wasn't so interested, but I feel I don't know, I just realized like, I'm pretty onto it now. And then I realized like, man, if I just had a few more little ticks, I could have maybe I'm pretty happy with my job and everything at the moment, but maybe gone just that tier higher and have like a few less calluses on my hands maybe. Yeah. Education is massive, bro. I think it was fully underrated at my time, and I think maybe kids are a bit more into it now, but I would have said study and don't worry about all the other crap that's going on.
Let's say if you told your 15-year-old self to continue studying, do you think you would have gone into a career pathway that would have been different? That's going to be the next question anyway.
Yeah, I think so. I think
career path if it wasn't for boxing.
Yeah, because at the moment, you know, like boxing isn't my career because in New Zealand it's hard to fund. You basically can't unless you're like a full-time gym owner. But even then, so I mean, I went down electrician path when I left school because I knew I wasn't going to uni, right? Which is like, if I had got higher marks, I would have been able to go to uni and then see what that world's about. But I was like, all right, I'll get a trade. And only because I knew another electrician and he had lots of money. So I was like, oh, I guess that's that then. I didn't have really any interest in it. So I just did it. And then I realized I liked it. And so after I completed that, I was like, we'll get this. But I was like, sweet, I quite like it. I'll go become an electrical engineer. And my stepdad, who's just like a straight up, like black and white dude, was like, listen, mate, you're not going to do that, all right? Maths will be way too hard. You're not going to enjoy it. And I don't think you're going to get through this. So don't make this mistake. And I didn't. And he talked me out of it. And I felt pretty gutted for a bit. I was like, man, this is a bit, yeah, but he's probably right because, so I've gone down another path now. I've got like what's called dual trade, right? So I'm like a mechanical engineer, and so now I see where it all is, and I see how complex the mathematics is, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, definitely. I'm glad that they're getting smart people to make these calculations because, like, man, some of it's really intense. So would I have gone down this route? No, I probably, if I had my choice, I would have done industrial design, I think, which is like designing products and stuff, you know, like things like this and how they all come together. Yeah. That kind of thing. I really like that. I really like looking at how guys come up with like little cases and yeah, things like that. It's just cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I like that. Yeah.
Probably get yourself a 3D printer or something.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I'm just like, you know, I'm like learning how to run a lathe and things like that. I'm always like, yeah, but it would, yeah, maybe, yeah, something. I quite like the drawing side of it as well. That's it. But now I'm too busy, you know, man. It's just like, oh well, I'll just make sure my kids understand the value of it. I think that was it. I just didn't understand the value of it, and I was at such a good school, so I was like, now when I look back at it, I was like, man, it just gives you so many options. But I just think when you're young, you can't see that far ahead, and you're just like, yeah. As long as I'm kind of like lucky I didn't veer too far off it because could have got worse. So you can never come back sometimes.
How about you fellas? Because I have that thought quite often these days as well. But at the same time, there are moments of like, maybe I'm not as smart as I think. But like, I don't know. I've gotten to a good point, but like, if I could go back, like, if you could just get that degree and just like not have to do the grind as much, that's definitely a lesson I'm going to instill in my kids. I think it's work smarter, not harder, man. Like,
I'll just say something about that. Not as smart as you think you are thing. It's like I feel like that quite often, right? But then because of the role I'm in now, I have like these meetings. And I'm like sitting at the table with some pretty smart people, but some things that go down and you realize like certain scenarios, you're like, these guys are just like kids that have just grown up too. Like they're not anything like, I think you build it up in your head that they're like, they're doctors or, you know, like everybody's like super intelligent and you're the idiot. And, you know, they say don't be the smartest guy in the room, but I don't think sometimes it's as much as you think it is. I think experience plays a massive part in all of this stuff. It's like how long you've come across these situations. How do you deal with them? Like,
do you reckon like part of it's like also a cultural thing? Like maybe the way that, you know, being like ethnic people and stuff, we sort of have this misconception that, you know, like the Bahini guys know a bit more or whatever.
Because we don't, like our parents, right? So your dad and my dad grew up on a sugarcane field, right? So the conversations that are going on in our house are not the same as what's going on in my mate's house, whose dad owns a shipping company. Like, so you're not like around these things, and so when you get in there, like us, we're like these first generations that have popped out, but we've come out of the school system, so we're sort of like on this level playing field with these other guys. And when you get in, and you start to realize, like, I just think we're just not around it, and it's not the conversations that are being had in our house, so we don't. Maybe we just build it up in our head a little bit.
Yeah.
We're obviously capable, but you should have studied harder in school, and so should I.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Kind of find an escape hatch there for education, eh?
Bro, it's so valuable. It's so valuable. It's so we had this guy at our school, man, and like he was an A. So like grammar's like streamed. So like it's like smart kids, A, B, C, D. Yeah. Right. And like
you had E's?
Sorry?
You had E's?
It went to O.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
Sucks to be the O guy.
At Roscoe Grammar, like in third and fourth form, you had C, B, and A.
Yeah, okay. Now listen, our A, these guys that were in A were like, oh my God, they're so smart. But one of these dudes chilled with us at lunchtime. And he was like a normal guy, but super smart. And like both his parents were like brain surgeons. And last I heard, he's doing the same thing now. He's like brain surgeon. And you're just like, I don't know, he got it, but you can just imagine what was happening at his dinner table. And at our house, our dads were talking about like, man, did you see Kane? He just took off his mask and he's like burnt in there. And we were like, really? What was his face like? And he was like, oh, it was all messed up. And it was like wrestling was real, So like, I just think it sort of just takes a few generations to catch up. I was saying that to you on the phone yesterday. We're like probably like 3 generations away from being where we imagine what it is. And it's like our kids' will be in that spot. And that's it. I just think that's it. You just got families that have been here for years and have been successful for a long time. So it's sort of hard to stop.
I think it's kind of good where your background has been, rather than a settler, you've kind of been a colonizer, you've just been a mover. And that you're able to take the experience from so many other different cultures at different developmental stages in your life. It's kind of like paid off in the back end. Yeah. When you speak about your experience, I always think like, man, experiences. I'm sure it's somewhere, some random like wisdom quote is like, experience is the best teacher. Like you can go into class and you do like woodwork or whatever, but if you don't actually go through the experience and turn it into a learning experience, it's like it becomes nothing.
I got to say, like when we were in one of the questions was what was it like living in South Asia, and I remember coming, and when I was hanging out when me and Imran were both in Malaysia, like there's so much value in common sense and like practicality and like street smart and all this sort of stuff, because bro, like people in other parts of the world aren't the same, man. They their value of things and just again common sense. Like we would like for instance, Imran and I were like, he was basically they wanted him to run the gym, and I was like, oh well, I'll run it with you or do all the office stuff you need, whatever you want. As long as I get to train for free and I get paid a little bit of money, cool. So me and him were like, all right, let's make like the gym more tech, like get some more tech in there, get some better shelving, get all this stuff. I remember me and this dude like went to IKEA for the day, and like it was like a full day of IKEA shopping. Like the boss gave us the card, this is all the stuff, and me and this dude, and Imran's more, because he's got a trade, he knows more of that sort of stuff, whereas I'm more like, well, it makes sense to do this, or if you want to, put this computer thing here, whatever. And we did all this stuff, and it was just really interesting seeing people's reactions to it. Like they're like hailing us as like geniuses, and like it was because in our own country, we always feel like, that whole thing we're talking about where you're kind of like, I'm not sure if I should be here, which sometimes I still have those moments in my current job, but I'm starting to chill out now with that. I'm like, nah, I deserve to be here. But like, in those instances, they were looking at us like, man, you New Zealanders are like really smart, eh? Like you guys, like, it was like, but we're like, yeah, but didn't you know how to do some of this stuff? Or didn't you know how to assemble, or like put this, or, it was weird, man. But it was eye-opening anyway.
Well, like they were like, man, you're like the greatest worker we've ever had, and all I did was just a normal day's work. Like I didn't do anything special. I wasn't going out of the way. Like I just turn up on time, do my best, and go home. And they were like, "Wow, this guy's amazing!" And it was just, it was really funny when they said that. And just the common sense is a massive thing over there. It was really funny. I remember that day. I haven't thought about that in so long. And then God, what a house away. But it's like I don't know how to explain that thing. You see, just like it's different. So you can also, it can like piss you off if you let it. I think at times it does, and then you have to realize that like, oh, that's just the way we work is not the way they work. So you've just got to like try and find this little gap, and when you can hit the gap, you do your thing, and then you just got to follow back into their line and then do it again, because it's they can. Yeah, they just do some funny stuff, eh? And that's just about it. Like, nothing else to say. It's like, it is what it is. It's all good. I feel like it's always been a part of my life. Since we were kids, like, but I've never been good at it. I think that's it. Islam is like, besides like having it in your heart, like what you believe, which I believe fully, is like there's actually like the physical side of acting. There's things you have to do when you practice this religion, and I think I've just never really been good at that. I've always looked at Illy, and Illy's always been good at it. He's like memorized a whole bunch and performed all the tasks, and I feel like I've always like lagged in that, and probably have got through purely on the it's sort of like it's all good because I do believe it, but I'm not the best at like praying 5 times a day and all of this stuff. But I do. Sorry, I definitely do most of them. Okay, so like I believe
for sure,
and I give the charity and I fast, and the other two are sort of I don't really pray 5 times a day, and I haven't been to Hajj, so. That's about it. Has it played a big part? Yeah, like it has, but I'm definitely not the best example, but I'm not the worst either.
Nah, well, definitely not. Like the thing about Imran is like, because I do all the call to prayer and all that sort of stuff, because it was just expected of me growing up, especially going to a Muslim school. But one thing I say about Imran is he definitely lives it, like lives by the code of it. That's the thing with Islam as well, is like, you've got your pillars, and there's certain things that like I'm the same. I'm not like perfect at all, but we live it, and there's so many things that I actually think Imran does, that the way he carries himself, like he never does anything that's dishonorable, and always like carries himself with Islam in his mind and in his heart. And I see that a lot. Like I actually saw that a lot, even when we were traveling, when when you're in a place where there's so much temptation to do the wrong thing, he wasn't doing that sort of stuff. Like it's really easy for most people to sink into that. So I think that's just my observation anyway, as his cousin. But I think, you definitely do what you can, man.
Yeah, it's sort of it's a hard one, eh? It's a pretty tough religion if you really look at it, and then other guys will be like, "Nah, it's not. You're just being lazy," and it's probably a bit of both, Like it requires discipline, but the discipline is sort of beneficial at the other end. But I definitely let it guide my life. I try not to go outside of that when it comes to especially with dealing with people and making decisions about how I interact with them and what's going to happen after. Like, yeah,
that's good. it's probably. I guess I'll take a different twist on this. Because I didn't think I've seen this asked before. And this is, I guess, of a Muslim faith. Is there like any because us as Christians we use like scripture as like motivation when times get hard and things like that. Do you guys like quote or use parts of like
Yeah,
scripture?
Illy will know the name. Illy will know the name of this verse. I just know the verse, and so there was this time when we were a kid.
4:13, and you know everybody does something. Do you?
Yeah, for sure. The Quran is.
Yeah, I'll just say like Illy will know the actual. I can't remember what it's called, right? I think it's called Ikhlas, but it's based. I only know it in Arabic. I would probably give you a rough idea of what it means in English, but it talks really about the oneness of God, of it being a singularity. And the reason I think I use it so much is one day I was real scared as a kid, and we've got a cousin who's a full breed, and he was like, hey, if you ever get scared, you say this one 3 times, and then you'll be sweet. And it worked, right? Because I believe it works, awesome. And it does work. And then I've just used that forever. You know what I'm talking about, eh? Kul Allahu Ahad, that one? Yeah. So I don't know the actual name of this thing, but yeah, I got one. And I use it all the time, man. Sometimes, you know, you're walking down somewhere and it is just like everything's just getting a little bit, hey, I just like chuck that one in under my breath and then I'm sweet again.
Oh, nice.
It's like one of our like go-to, like, so it's a verse from the Quran, but it's like one of the shorter ones, but it's one that even when we're doing like family prayers or anything, we all recite like generally like a standard Muslim, I guess, would like know a few of the end chapters verses, and we'll recite it all by heart, and we'll do it as a family, and all the men you'll be standing up sometimes, and that particular surah we actually do it 3 times, so it's just because it's so significant. But yeah, like for us, like we have a few different ways, so you can quote things from the Quran, and there's lots of Qurans that, you know, translated in English. There's actually a Quran translated in Samoan as well. So shout out to Brother Stanley for he's a revert that he translated the whole Quran into Samoan, and I got to meet him in his village. Is really cool. But we also have something called the Hadith as well, which is sort of like the memoirs of like our sort of like apostle equivalent to that. It gives like accounts of things that have happened in their lives when they were around our Prophet Muhammad. But yeah, like, and the Quran it runs parallel to the Bible in a lot of time, because a lot of it is, you know, it's the third book to us, you know, so it was Torah, Quran, Bible, and then Quran. So yeah.
You want to hear it? It's only 3 lines, so it is called Surah Ikhlas, and I'll read it if you want.
Yeah.
So it goes: say He is God, the One, God the Absolute. He begets not, nor was He begotten, and there is nothing comparable to Him. That's it. It's one of those like short.
Yeah, it's like just puts the reference back onto Him and be like, you know, he's got you, like.
Yeah, and it's just like like one of the main parts of Islam, if not that it's like one God kind of thing, you know. Sort of what it's all based around, really.
Actually, kind of ties into like you know, as us being half caste, and you sort of touched on it before, like just like how did you find growing up as mixed race, like was there like hurdles you found with it, or did you find
I was
identified with one more than the other? Like,
I didn't like it, bro. I never liked going to the mosque because it was always like we were always looked upon as like, oh, bro, I never felt comfortable there. These Malvis are always like speaking Urdu or something, and you're like, bro, none of us speak Urdu here. I don't speak that, so I don't know why you are either. Because like now, even when I go to the mosque, I'm always kind of like, I wish you guys just did this in English at this beginning, because there's no real reason for you to be talking in this language. Like, unless you're reciting Quran, if you're giving a sermon to the people here, like as these generations change, I don't know how strong, that language is going to hang around. So anyway, I always kind of felt like I was going to get in trouble. And like when I was going, bro, they used to whip you, eh? So they had these like bamboo bushes, and they'd get like some kid to go out and they'd get these like pieces of bamboo, and then you'd have to go up and read the Quran to this dude. And you know, so we're like, it's like you're learning ABC, kind of these books, right? Of like just the fundamentals of Arabic language. You're not reading Quran yet. You're just like learning the language. Okay, so I'll give you the other side of it with no context, by the way. Okay, so you are looking at a character and you're reciting the sound. Okay, so you might learn a word, but no one will tell you what that word means, right? So it's kind of, I don't know if it's really the way to be learning a language, but anyway, this is what they'd do. You'd go up, right? So he'd be like, yeah, you come up now. And he'd know where you're up to somehow. He knows where everyone's up to, and you'd read the page. You get it wrong, and you're like, smash your hand or something, you know, with the stick. And then you'd be like freaking out. And then you have to read it again, get it wrong. And somehow they think that if they just keep smacking your hand, like right on the knuckle, you'll get better. And then you just mess it up and you'd cry. And they'd smack you, and then you'd go back and sit down in front of everyone, and you're crying, and then all the other kids are like reading hard out, and everyone's like freaking out, and it was just like traumatic, to be honest. I wish they didn't get these, because they get these guys who weren't like teachers, you know. They were like, I think this thing I keep bringing up with Illy is that like a lot of our community are people that have come from like other places because it was hard or something, you know, like his dad and my dad grew up on sugarcane farms and then came to New Zealand. And like this guy would have come from Pakistan or India and then come to New Zealand. And like they sort of gave them like roles to do in the community, and everyone sort of played their part. But it wasn't like, all right, we've got this guy here and he's got like a degree in teaching, or he's gone through these social working courses and he understands how like to deal with children and like all of this. So it was still sort of like building itself, you know, like our mosque wasn't a mosque, it was a center. We just had the land, and it was like basically a double garage. So like, if you look at it now, it's sort of grown to the stage, but I can see why it was the way it is. Like, who else was going to do it, you know? So they got the guy to do it, but he wasn't like a teacher, even though they're called teachers. Like, it was a pretty hard way to learn. So I always felt like freaked out there. And then I always felt like, because I didn't know it, and I knew I didn't know it, and I couldn't just bang it out like Illy could, that I was always like guilty for like not being like as good at it at reciting Islam as reciting Quran as I should be. And then what happens there is like, oh, well, you don't really want to pray then. And you tend to just sort of go to the back of the thing, and then maybe we'll just gap it outside when everyone's praying, and we'll just hang outside, and you just get left, you know, you have to think just so you can feel more comfortable in these situations, because you sort of feel like you're just being naughty or something. You know, you just feel guilty, eh? And it's like, oh, this kind of like, when I look back at it now, I'm like, oh, they probably could have made that way more fun. But, you know.
I agree. Because like, I always felt bad because I was sort of in the middle. Like, everyone expected me, by contrast, to be this Indian half caste. Like, they wanted me to be more on the Indian side. And I would even have it at times when, like, because Indians are pretty racist, bro. To like
I just cut, sorry, one thing. Okay, the difference between me and Illy is that my parents got divorced.
Yeah.
So I lived with my mum, who was a Māori, and my brother stayed with my dad, who's Indian. But Illy's parents were together. So as long as they were together, they're like Fijian Indians. Everybody is. Even more, even his mum, who grew up in Sna, you're Fijian Indian now. Like,
no, for sure. It played a big part of it because my dad was there the whole time. It was like, okay, well, I have to do what he says. And my dad was a very dominant figure, you know, in my house. Like, you know, whatever he said goes kind of thing. And so, like, I remember one time, one of my uncles, like, they, you know, especially when you watch sport or something, it's like, oh, it's because these Islanders don't listen to the white fellas, you know, if he just did it like that. And I would get so mad, and I would always like say something, and I would always get in trouble. I'd be like, hey man, that's my people you're talking about. If it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be winning or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you're Indian. And I'm like, excuse me. So it was always this like weird thing. But I always felt bad because Imran and like a few of my other cousins and uncles, they were more seen as like the bad boys because, you know, it might be because the ones from Panama, especially, they'll be like, oh, those guys are no good or whatever. But, you know, when you do that to people, or if you give them that feeling, it pushes people away. And I always felt bad because I was like, I'd rather hang out with those dudes because I relate more to them. But everyone's expecting me to be like this. But like, I think what we'll find, and inshallah, you know, God willing, I think, you see it a lot here in Aussie because it's in New Zealand, most of the Muslims are Fijian Indians, whereas over here there's a lot of Lebanese, there's a lot of Turks, there's too many different races that when I've gone to mosques here, they speak in English. And it's amazing because I actually know what they're saying, and he translates it because this Lebanese guy who actually speaks Arabic will be like, he'll be like this and that. No, but anyway, he'll be like, brothers, you come here to the mosque. I see you're parking over there. You're not parking in the right spot. And I'm telling you, astaghfirullah, if I see this again, I'm going to tell your family. Like he'll talk to him, and then he'll be like, okay, now get on with it. And then he'll like make a joke, and then he'll be like, okay, so today we're going to speak about, family dynamics. How should you communicate with each other? And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, my whole life, I have to barely understand what the guy's saying in Urdu because I can speak about Urdu, but it's like a more advanced level of Hindi. So even Hindi enough is pretty complicated. So I was sitting there at like our Friday prayer, which is like our main prayer day. We call it Jummah prayer. And man, I was just fascinated. I was like, I listened to every single word, man, the priest was saying, oh, Imam, because I understood it. And then every time he'd be like, he'll quote something, he'll say it in Arabic, and then he'll translate it. He'll say the Arabic bit first, and he said, this is what it means in English. Now, brothers, interpret those words, and he'll emphasize on, and I'm like, I hope this will come to New Zealand. I think it has to, because there's just going to be too many Kiwis there. Like, those kids are going to change,
Well, one of our cousins goes to a different mosque now because he moved, and he's like, "Oh, you should come here. They speak in English." And even he's like the same thing. He's like, "This is great. Like, I can get down." It's it's kind of odd to walk into a room. Obviously, everything he's saying in our eyes is good, but if you don't know what he's saying, you don't really walk away with anything, because the first half of that is meant to be basically a pastor giving a sermon, rather than him actually reading bits of the book. So he's meant to tell you how this is going to relate into daily life. And we didn't walk away with any of that. We just went there and then left, and that was it. But I think, that's what I mean about this whole, 3 generations away from getting to this sort of point where, heaps of stuff will click. But it just takes time.
We just need one of our brothers, someone like us, to pretty much step up and do it, hopefully. I don't know, it might be your kid around. Might have to.
I think Elias is like putting his hand up,
not me.
If anyone was gonna do it, it was I would have put my money on him. He would have been the bet. This guy knows a lot about it, and
you're making it sound like he's a saint.
Oh, no, definitely not a saint. I just mean just his knowledge of it. He's definitely not a saint. He's definitely not a saint. But if anyone could have been the guy, I think it would have been him.
But it would be an honor if my a child of ours. I think it's just the way we educate our kids. Like Imran said, it takes generations of it, but for sure, Imran's going to encourage his kids to learn it and learn the translation as well. That's what my mum did. Because as a revert, how else is she going to understand it, And so a lot of the women, Imran's mum as well, they used to run programs for new Muslims, revert Muslims. A lot of them, they were Pacific Island, Maori, Cook Island women. Sister Fatima, she was a Rarotonga lady that was kind of one of the first as well. And they used to have these things, and you see all these other half-caste kids, but they were so more I thought I was Indian, but some of them were more Indian than me. They went full on the Indian side. They didn't know anything about their Samoan side. Whereas my whole thing, which Imran will know, is I always tried to keep in touch with my Samoan side, go to Samoa, speak it. Sometimes these guys give me a hard time because I'd be too Samoan at times, but I was just proud of it, because especially in an Indian setting, it's they'll be man, this kid just loves it.
I think if you look back at it, we would always make fun of him for it and things like this, but it's probably like this element of like jealousy that like you still have that connection, because I would never make fun of it when it was just me and you. It would be the boys, and then they would spark it up, and then to fit in, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'd jump in. But if you look at their relationship with their half-caste side, it's not very strong, if any, you know what I mean? It's almost looked as not one of the good things about them. So,
but you're still pretty connected with your iwi and stuff like that. Like,
well, to a point, I feel like I could definitely be more. But I went down recently and caught up. We went to a cousin's birthday in Gisborne, and that was cool, man. Like, just like you sort of forget as well if you never deal with them, and then you get there and you're like, oh yeah, there's like all these people that like to just see me, and they're all nice, and everyone gets along down here. They had a box of crayfish, eh? Like, there was so much crayfish. I have never seen that much. It was a box, bro. And I was just like, oh man, this is gonna be mean. Yeah, that kind of stuff, and you're like, you forget, and you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. There is this other thing down here.
Would you rather pick a curry or a hangi?
Okay, let me tell you something about this, all right? My dad recently made a hangi. So my dad is the Indian one, and he did a hangi. And I was telling, because we had a hangi down at Discord birthday as well, and I was telling them, I was like, bro, have you guys ever had hangi where they put masala and onions and garlic and curry paste and all this stuff in the hangi? And they were like, nah. And my dad did this, bro, and it was so good. So it's like a curry hangi. It was so nice, man. I'm telling you, hey, the thing was real good. But what would I pick?
I guess you can call that a curry.
I would always pick a curry, to be honest. A curry with fresh roti is like pretty hard to beat, eh? Like, yeah, it's pretty hard to beat.
We were when we were in Malaysia, I used to get real annoyed sometimes because the food was always like just too sweet and soury, and I'm so Fijian Indian about it. I'm like, bro, I just want to eat something. Like at one point, I just started eating like just tandoori chicken every day, because I was like, I need to eat some like Indian food, because I'm just kind of getting over this Malaysian food. And Malaysian food's delicious, don't get me wrong, but I was just getting a bit homesick. Man, this guy like walking down this main strip, and it's kind of like where everything happens, right? Bukit Bintang, it's like this, like it's like their Las Vegas strip type of thing. And man, this dude walking around, and there's like this gypsy lady outside speaking Farsi and being like, how much are they saying all this stuff? Just as we were walking past, I heard the language, and I was like, wait, they're Indian. Oh no, they're Pakistani. Then we look inside in the food, and it's the exact same food as what like our grandmother makes for us. Like somehow her tribe, basically, because we call it Patan, but like we reckon our daddy's got some like Afghani sort of Indian roots at some point, and they basically had all the same food, bro, and we loved it. Like,
I actually remember the place. I forgot about the lady, but I remember the place. The curry was like as close as you could get to that, the home cooked stuff. Yeah, that was yum. I remember you going on, because at least mum. So we would go to his house and like sleep over and watch wrestling videos and stuff, and his mum was always super nice to us, man, and she would always cook food. So they always had taro and things like that at their house, right? And then I remember us being in Malaysia, and he's like, man, I just want this dish my mum cooks. And it's like tinned fish with like potato. Do you know the dish I'm talking about? It's like fish and potatoes. I don't know how she cooks it, but it's like fish and potatoes. Like
yeah.
And I remember him just feeding it over there, being like, man, I just want that dish. And I was just like, I remember eating it too. And I was like, oh, this is crack up. But it's funny how you get homesick.
Yeah. Imran loved it. He was eating sweet and sour stuff.
Oh, I'm all good. I'm eating banana leaf. I could eat banana leaf every day. Oh. The food's on. Definitely go for a feed if you get a chance. Just remember, because I remember watching a couple back where you guys were talking about taro, and I don't know if anyone brought it up, but like we would get it. So the Fijians eat taro as well, and so the Fijian Indians get it. but our side would like boil it first and then fry it in a pan. And I reckon that's the best way. Yeah,
it is. You're right. It's almost like taro wedges almost, and it's like it's got a bit of saltiness. It's crisp, and it's just right. Good call. That is actually.
You know, they peel it and then you cut it into discs like that thick, and then they cut those into semicircles, and then I guess that's boiled, and then it's fried, man. And
in Samoa, like when we have like some. Like if we have too much galo or like fa'i or whatever, like we would like chop it up and put it in the fryer and then just like eat it like that. And it's yum.
Yeah. It's yum. There's also another traditional, it would be not a sweet but a snack, and they take see, I don't think you get this in India. I think this is like a mod that the Fijian Indians have made where they take the taro leaf and they get like it's like dal, dal is like lentils, right? But imagine dal that's not so liquidy, and they like make it into a paste and put it on the taro leaf, and then roll the taro leaf up, and then they cut that into these like sushi slices basically, and then deep fry those, and that's called soina, and that is honestly so yum. And like that's like one of those other ones because like. They would grow taro at my dad's house.
I never clicked that soina was.
It's taro leaf, yeah.
It's
not. Yeah. It's like a and they would just use the leaves because the actual taro doesn't grow over here, but the leaves will grow, right? And they would make that here fresh and like, man, that's like straight out of the fryer. That's hard to beat as like
it's
any
a
Indian
delicious
snack.
Savory, man. Yeah. I rate that over pakora, I reckon, and those type of things.
Yeah, like, and it's like one of their local, like they've adapted that one, like they've just sort of got somewhere and been like, oh, okay, well, let's use this. And it's super yum, eh? Some good ones.
We're going to have to try and find a spot for us in Melbourne.
There's a Fijian Indian joint in Dandenong. There's a few, and you'll know, PJ, there's heaps of us out there. That's actually more, that's where our uncle Arif lives. So
there's so many like Middle Eastern people, like Indians and Pakistanis walking around the streets, like where I live, and so it's cool because you kind of feel protected, and then you like see like some of them are Sikh, some of them Muslim, but it's cool because they all walk around like they're security guards and they're just like watching, or like they're out the front of their house and they're just watching. Or there's a group of them and they're just like sitting there like talking and just like while all the kids are playing, they're watching as well.
Yeah, I love how they do that. They literally just sit outside on the porch and just people watch from the house.
Yeah, who needs CCTV, man?
Yeah, they're just like
I could go deep in that, but I don't want to bore you guys. So this, I tell Imran, I think I've told Imran this whole thing probably a million times about how the British Raj days, all the different types of Indians got segmented into different classes. So like Punjabis were like the agriculture and police or military sector. So they'll put them as, because Raj put Punjabis particularly, which is what like Great Kali and all those dudes, they're like a clan of warriors that have always been. Whereas like, but then, when you've got no wars and stuff to do, they'll just go into the military or they go into the police. But the other side of it really they're usually farmers. So, but Punjabis, they're pretty onto it, man. Like that's why they live for a long time too, because they always walk, like no matter what age. Like they could be like 80 years old and you see them like walking around old Papatoe for the whole day, and like they actually exercise a lot more than you realize, which is cool.
That's a tough question. I feel like this is one of those ones that I'll say it now and it'll go out into the world forever, and then I'll walk away and I'll be like, oh, I shouldn't have put them there, and then or I'll say it and then someone will go, I can't believe you put them up there. So I'll just say these.
Who's your top tier? Who's your top tier?
Yeah, okay, so Mount Rushmore's got 4, right? So I'll pick 4, but they're all for different reasons. I'll say that much. I don't think they're all just because I think they're all the best fighters. Really. So it'll be like Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., and Floyd Mayweather.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
So I mean, it's and then the debate will go on forever. But yeah, I think that's it. For me, I think that's a pretty solid lineup. I think.
Do you think Canelo will eventually get there?
Well, no, because he lost to Floyd, so that's that.
If you take the one away.
That's the thing. I like
It's a
Canelo
different
hard
tier.
out. He's on.
Tier.
Yeah, he's on like the he's at the souvenir shop just below the place. Like he's there with Triple G and all these other guys who are like mean as like the classic dudes. We're not gonna talk about Joe Fraser and all these dudes are like, you know what I mean? It's such an endless list. Lennox Lewis, Tyson Fury is the man.
Yeah.
I think he'll go down.
Even Pacquiao,
legend.
Pacquiao.
Yeah, it just goes on and on. I like all of them. That's why I feel like this is such a hard thing. But if I just had to do it and just walk away and just let all of the drama and not look at the comments, I think I'd just make that and then quickly gap it. Yeah.
I'm guessing you chose Floyd because of his defense.
His is purely for that 50-0 and the money. He's like, honestly, if you look at what professional boxing is about, in my eyes, which is money, he mastered it. He's the greatest. He made so much money.
Like putting your body on the line for all that money.
Yeah, and he made heaps of it, and he made heaps fighting guys like Conor. He just fought like a YouTube guy and still made more money than anybody that's current and relevant right now, like out of retirement. He fought the Japanese guy. Like he's making heaps of guys like that aren't, people just. I guess that shows the value of that zero. Like when you got it, people want to see it go. So they'll follow him wherever he goes, as long as they can. He's got that allure. Like, maybe
that's why Jake Paul's. Everybody's chasing Jake Paul.
Yeah. So, that's. I think he really mastered what pro is about. Yeah. Well, this is like us being idiots inside a place of worship. We shouldn't have been doing this. But basically, when you go to these mosques, this mosque is in Malaysia. And man, it's a bit of a spectacle. I think the theme here is like metal or something, but it's like the place is pretty hardcore. And when we went there, Illy was wearing like shorts and a t-shirt. And you can't go in to a place of worship. So they give you, they understand that people come and have a look at these buildings all the time. So they give you these robes that you can wear. But as soon as we put them on, we were just like, hey, remember back when Undertaker had like those druid guys coming out with him? He'd have like these like minions or something they called them, and they would hold the fire and walk through. Yeah, and we were just walking around doing that inside there. That was stupid as. We're probably gonna get in trouble for that.
It's funny. I think that was in Putrajaya, right? It's kind of government sector, but they have like mosques of the future, pretty much. Like one of them practically had a mall underneath the mosque, like a shopping center. It was, it was. But yeah, Imran's right. We're probably. But
I like Elias how he had like this cheeky smile, eh?
Oh, dude, there's more photos of us fully doing like the Undertaker.
That's so stupid.
There's actually one with us with like our eyes rolling up and stuff like that. Like there's a few. Alright, so
this here was when I was a male model, bro. So basically, when I was in Malaysia, the guy who owned the gym was a model. So all these other models were coming to the gym. And then someone was like, hey, they're doing like they need someone to do a self-defense thing. And they got Ben, who Illy mentioned earlier, to basically go to this magazine. I think it was, it's quite a famous magazine. I can't remember what it's called, but it was like the Asian version of it, like it's not Vogue, but it was like something like da-da-da. Yeah, something like this. And it's sold in Australia and New Zealand. You'll know the name when you hear it. I just can't remember what it's called. But basically, Ben was giving self-defense, a step-by-step self-defense thing for this magazine, and they needed like a male to demonstrate it. And so I think I'm actually meant to be. It was like, what if a guy leans in for a kiss? And so this one was like, first she like grabs the arm, pushes the face, and then she's gonna knee me in the, you know what? And then that's that. That was like the move. And we just went like step by step. I remember because Ben was so fashion. Ben, like, it was like, 100 degrees in Malaysia, and Ben would walk around with like a scarf and stuff. And he was just like, as long as it looked good, he was into it. And he was like, I can't believe you wore blue and black. And I was like,
he's from Belgium, so he's very, very European with his
it's like,
fashion.
I just got a bag of, like, I barely had an actual collared shirt, man. Like, I think I just, it's so funny. So, this is after a jiu-jitsu class, I think. With, this is after a jiu-jitsu class. That guy right in the middle with the Brazil color shirt, Joao, was a black belt. And so this is like a no-gi class. The guy standing next to me, the Indian guy, is Aguilan. And he's probably done the best out of all of this. The other guy in front of him did all right. His MMA, but I don't know. I was just having fun here, man. This was fun. I wasn't really thinking much. Oh, is that you? Oh, was it? Yeah, cool.
Wait.
That was probably one of the classes where you wouldn't let me finish unless I actually managed to tap you out or something.
Oh, yeah. I used to because I was like, nah, what are you doing? Ellie, you got to feel this. So we try to like rough him up a bit from time to time.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
But he was like, people wouldn't get it too, He's like, he's my cousin. I'm sort of like allowed to like do that, and then people be like, "Oh, just take it easy. It's just a white belt." I'm like, "It's all right."
It's gotta be like more than
just a white belt. It's my cousin.
Yeah, we're allowed to. I'm allowed. It's all good. Yeah, that was fun. Fun times.
So speaking of jiu-jitsu,
here he is, bro, the man. Yeah. So what happened was Aguilan made it all the way to fight for the one championship middleweight belt, and
against Ben Askren, right?
Against Ben Askren. So I flew back to Malaysia and did 2 weeks or something with him, and then we got ready for this fight. And this is in Singapore. And then Eddie Bravo was there. I don't know who he was there with. It's might have been a guy from the gym, but he was there. And I just like turned around and he was behind me basically. We were at like a press thing. And then I was like, "Yo, Eddie, what's up?" And he was like, "Hey, bro." And then I said, "Can I get a photo?" He's like, "Yeah, sweet." Oh, that's just a little car, man. Have you seen a car that small before? That's I think this is in Amsterdam, man.
Oh, okay.
My wife, my wife's German. So we went to Germany to meet her family. And then, I just popped over to see Illy's cousin, who's like, I don't know, maybe one of only 4 Samoans living in the Netherlands, maybe. And he was there. So I was like, "Yeah, let's go see him. He's right there, and that'll be fun." So we went and caught up with him.
This kind of goes into the second photo as well. But
that's my wedding day, day 3 of my wedding. That Korowai, my mum made that. So
that's mean.
That's pretty proud moment. I presented that to my wife once we married, and that sort of brought her into the tribe here. So,
well, speaking of marriage, this was a big day for you.
I think that's day 1 of the wedding, the nikah. So we were like married under God's eyes this day. This was like the actual ceremony of us, religious marriage.
Where's that? Is that Auckland?
Yeah, that's at the museum.
Yeah. That's right. And what Imran was saying, like obviously Muslim weddings, they go longer than just one day, probably 3 or 4 depending on your family. So, and finally on this one, which if you want to close it off, just to give us some details about the gym and where we can find you as well.
I mean, this is what I'm up to now. This is basically it, man. I have opened a gym the guy in the black shirt there, when I started boxing at that gym, he was there. And this guy is super smart and super, like, I didn't really realize it until now how much of like a nice and well-rounded perspective on things he has. And he's a really good dude. I'm so glad he helps us out. I think he'll be a big part of what I believe will happen in the future. So I'm glad he's on board now. And then these two guys in the middle. So Eddie is the guy in the boxing kit there. He came to me about 3 years ago, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago now, getting that way, as a kid who'd been kicked out of a bunch of schools, you know, from not so good home, like situations with parents and stuff like that. And he's basically was going to like a charter school or something. And then this guy who knew us brought him to the gym. And he brought 3 kids, and Eddie was one of them. And the other 2 kids didn't come back because he was like, oh, they can't come, they're too gangster. So Eddie was the only one who just kept coming back and wasn't playing up, and it was almost a reward for him. So he was allowed to keep coming. And then it was just me and Eddie, and we just trained for 1 year. And then he started fighting, and then he won 7 fights in a row, and then went all the way to the Nationals finals and got a silver medal at the Nationals in his first year of competing. And the guy he fought in the finals had like 50-something fights, you know, it was like 56 fights, and Eddie was like on 9 fights. And then the same year after that Nationals, Eddie got gifted a silver fern singlet and made a New Zealand team. So he was a youth boxer then, and then he got to represent New Zealand against this like Tri-Nations thing they did, was like New Zealand, Australia, Samoa. And that was a really cool year for him. It was a big year. And then the next year, where he's at now, is basically now he's got to fight grown men. So it kind of all starts again. Everything's a little bit different, and you got to get, you know. But he's actually really improving. He had like it always goes like that. That's where you lose most boxers. That like 18, 19, 20. If they're not doing well, it's kind of easy to drop out there. So he went like that on a massive rise really quickly, and then had this like plateau, but the plateau was so long it felt like he was getting worse, but it was really just staying the same. And now he's realized this mentality that he's got to have, and he's on the up. So he's doing really good. And then Justice, who's the African kid there, this is like, if everything goes the way I think it will for him, what a story. You know, I found him in a Bunnings. I was like at Bunnings, and I saw this kid, and I was telling my missus, because I was like, me and her looking for some stuff, and I said to him, I was like, you know, if I had a guy like that, I'd be able to show everybody that like what I know, what I'm teaching is legit. And I sort of saw him again, and then she was like, oh, why don't you just ask him? Like, we're in a date kind of thing. Just like, go ask him for his number. And I just went up to him and then asked him, I was like, hey man. He's like, and I was like, you play any sport? And he's like, I play football and basketball. And I was like, well, have you thought about boxing? And he was like, oh, kind of. And I was like, look, here's my number. If you want to come down to the gym, come down to the gym. And I didn't have a gym that I owned at the time. For the past like 2 years, 3 years, I've been working out of my original coach's gym. So I sort of just run my crew out of there, and he runs his crew out of there. And then he started coming there, and then it sort of just clicked, and he liked it, and I liked it, and now he's doing really well. He just won Auckland champs. So this will be like his first full year of fighting. So he just won Auckland champs, beating a guy who was like the silver medalist last year. He's had way more fights than Justice. So that was cool. And I think both these two guys are on the Commonwealth Games long list for New Zealand now. So there's like trials that they're running, and it'll be dependent on nationals results and stuff like that, which should have been like this end of last month, but COVID sort of messed that up. So they've moved it to the beginning of next year. It's like February or something. But yeah, I put a lot of effort into these two guys, and I believe they're going to do well. We just dropped Eddie down a weight class. He's going to be at 67. They just brought in 2 new weight classes. So
Yeah, I heard about that.
yeah, so Eddie will be a 67 now instead of a 69. And Justice, who was fighting at 81 kg, will now just fight at 86 kg. And
So they're like mid cruiser or?
well, the 86 kg is now called cruiserweight, which amateur boxing hasn't had. Like it's just it was these little 4 kg jumps all the way to 81, and then it'll be 81, 91 open. And those gaps are too big, man. Like it's crazy. So for Justice, like he can make 81 kg, but if he does what I think he's gonna do, if he has to go to an international tournament, you know, you're fighting over 5 days. So he might have like 3 or 4 fights over that. So he's got to maintain this weight. So making 81 is easy for one day, but to hold that weight is like a struggle, and we might see him taper off and get worse. So at 86, he doesn't even have to cut weight. He's just doing whatever he wants now, you know? So, yeah. And then that's me. Like, I've never been this fat. You go back a photo. I was looking good in that Eddie Bravo photo, and now look at that guy.
Yeah, you were pretty skinny there.
Bro, I was training hard out, and then now I just give like, and then now I just give all my time to these dudes, and I just work heaps, and it's just all that, eh? And I'm just like, oh yeah. I'm kind of like, I'm all good with it at the moment, but I'll have to do something about this before it really gets away on me.
Good. All right.
There's big hopes that you know, your boys do well. Hopefully they make it to Com Games at least. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the goal, man. I'm gonna produce an Olympian, so if it's not one of these 2 guys, it's gonna be one of you guys in New Zealand. So that's my goal. I want to get someone to the Olympics, and basically that's it. Obviously, I'll just do a little plug if it's all good. I got a gym. It's in Te Aratu Peninsula. It's called Universal Boxing. It's predominantly a boxing gym for people that want to do amateur boxing, but we do have classes open to the public for fitness only, basically. If you want to just do that, they're obviously boxing classes, but you can check out our timetable and things like that. But yeah, if you got young guys that you want to keep off or out of trouble, boxing is a pretty good avenue. And if they're getting into fights and all of that, then we have a place they can do it, and it's all fully allowed. And we like fighting too. I love a good scrap, you know, but I don't like violence. You know what I mean? So they're 2 different things. So you're happy to send your guys down. I think it's helped a lot of people, and I'm happy to be part of it. And I hope, if anything, we save a few kids. So that's cool too. Yeah, come down.
Sweet. Thanks for being here with us, and we've enjoyed hearing your journey and where you've come to, where you've been, and the experiences that you've been through. I think they're going to be very valuable for anyone, you know, that just, you know, have good morals and just do your best. Seems like it's done you well, and like I feel like there's a lot of people that it could help as well. So yeah, that's us. Beyond Athletes.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for having me. I think what you guys are doing is really good. I think probably the community needs it more than it realizes, and I hope it works out for you, and you guys are consistent with what you're doing, and I'm sure it will.
Inshallah, bro.
Yeah, it's cool.